Hi, so today I'm going to talk about possibly since I've started watching wrestling, the best individual year I've genuinely ever seen from a single wrestler, and that is Will Ospreay's 2024, basically when he signed with AEW. That was Ospreay's year when he signed with AEW, but AEW fans obviously were aware of Ospreay because there's a lot of bleed over with them in New Japan. But obviously, in 2022, that was Ospreay's first ever appearance on AEW programming, which was United Empire versus FTR and Trent Beretta for the Trios belts, or just a normal match at that point. Ospreay continued to have a match with Harwood, and then the most notable things he did before he signed with AEW on AEW TV was obviously the All-In 23 match at Wembley versus Chris Jericho, the Trios matches with the Elite, and obviously Death Triangle, and then he had a match at Wrestle Dream 2, which I think that was a Trios match also. Ospreay originally come out at Full Gear 23 to announce that he'd signed with AEW, but obviously because he was a long time and basically come up through New Japan, through the Super Juniors and stuff, wanted to finish his commitments with New Japan. The iconic clip that everyone, where he goes, "Pipe down, bruv," stuff like that, and he signed the contract, and then didn't come till around March of 2024. Ospreay comes out, and then at this point he's still with Don Callis and the Don Callis family, and his first match as an AEW superstar, essentially, or wrestler, I don't like saying superstar for AEW, was versus Takeshita at Revolution 2024. In my opinion, possibly the greatest pay-per-view AEW's done. Possibly. The match was insane, as you expect. You know, very much establishing Takeshita and Ospreay's just ability and chemistry with each other right from the get-go. I remember watching this match, and I went really... I'd seen Ospreay at All-In 23 versus Jericho, and my friends were like hyping up Ospreay because I didn't really know him at that point. And then I watched Revolution and my head was blown. I was like, yeah, this guy's the real deal. I love this guy. And that's just from in ring. We'll talk about the rest of Ospreay's attributes later. After this Takeshita match, which was again phenomenal, he went on to have matches on Dynamite against Fletcher, Shibata, and Powerhouse Hobbs. Shibata being the only one who wasn't in the Don Callis family at that point, I'm sure. And then he had a match with Claudio, setting up no hyperbole, anything about it. My favourite match of all time. AEW Dynasty 2024, the first time that pay-per-view ever existed, Will Ospreay had a match with Bryan Danielson. Now, like I said, this is my favourite match of all time. I could probably make multiple videos just glazing over this match. I just think Ospreay at that point, like I said, I cannot emphasise enough how phenomenal those matches were. And then this match, for me, I was dumbfounded how good this match was. When they announced it, I couldn't believe it. And that's not taken into Bryan Danielson. How I've not done videos just solely dedicated on Bryan is ridiculous. I think I will later today, if anything. And just, set up a series about Bryan. But I mean this wholeheartedly. I've never felt in any way close to the excitement about wrestling, period, than I have for weeks. I was giddy, genuinely. Every time I thought about it, when I was down, it was putting a smile on my face. I was genuinely I can't believe this. That's what I'd say to myself, and I just couldn't believe it. Ospreay versus Bryan Danielson was possibly my first ever dream match I got, and I didn't even know I wanted it at that point. That's how good it was, and the match delivered. The match absolutely delivered. If you've not watched Ospreay versus Danielson, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's on AEW, started uploading the full matches on their YouTube. It's obviously on there. It's magical. I've never been excited for a match more in my life. Debatably. But that feeling, that match will possibly be forever my favourite of all time. It's two of my favourite wrestlers of all time. It's in a year where I've never seen a wrestler wrestle like that. The spots in it, the speed, everything. Honestly, if I had to watch one match for the rest of my life, it probably would be that. And if I had to tell anyone who wants to get into wrestling, specifically with AEW, which people do ask, that would be my match. Ospreay actually won that match, which results is kind of the ending was just itself, but After this, Ospreay went into a casino gauntlet match for the international belt, which at this point was held by Roderick Strong, because Roderick Strong beat Orange Cassidy. And Ospreay won the gauntlet and challenged Roderick Strong for the AEW International Belt at Double or Nothing 2024. Phenomenal match, as you expect yet again. I mean, Roderick Strong and Will Ospreay, that's kind of like a match stylistically that's just going to gel anyway. They're both masters of the crafts. And again, just another phenomenal match from Ospreay. And Ospreay won the international belt. Now, when I was looking back on Ospreay's matches catalogue of 24, just to brief my mind before this video, I forgot how long he had this belt in terms of accumulatively. Obviously, we'll get to why I say that, but it was quite a decent reign in all things considered. I remember when Ospreay got that belt, and I'm like, this is it, he's going to have this belt for a few months, and then he's going to become world champ, and that nearly happened. So yeah, Ospreay won the international belt against Roddy, and when that happened, when he won that, at this point, Roderick was heel with the Undisputed Kingdom. That was like their first big belt that they won since that formation, so it was kind of a big win. And the pop for that was still insane. The match was phenomenal too. And then Ospreay, immediately after that, his immediate next match was against, well, not against, it was in another number one contenders match for Forbidden Door against Swerve Strickland, who won the men's heavyweight championship world title, at Dynasty previously. Now, Ospreay and Swerve at this point has very much been established as a friendship throughout wrestling. Even in AEW, people were kind of surprised when they had a tag team, even at All In, and obviously with the promos and stuff. But even back at the start of Rampage, he had a match with Swerve. Swerve tagged with Ospreay and the United Empire. So it's like, it's not just the out of nowhere thing. I thought that, I didn't even know that before I seen it for this video. This is before 2024. So I just kind of thought that was neat. And the match for Forbidden Door 2024, the main event, was Swerve versus Will Ospreay. And again, another phenomenal match, as you expect these guys. I didn't realise going into this match how similar Swerve can't not wrestle like Ospreay. You know how agile he was like Ospreay? At this point, I was a fan of Swerve. Who wasn't at this point? During his rise to the AEW Championship, phenomenal rise. And just how strong, like, I thought Swerve was more of a striker rather than just an all-round phenomenal tactician. And the Ospreay match really bolstered my opinion of him. And I stand by, this entire year, there's not a single bad match. And I don't think Ospreay single-handedly made anyone look bad during his entire year. And I really mean that. And the consistency of it. Yeah, I'll go more into this later. But Ospreay's consistency this year is insane. Like, there's not a bad match. Builds up the match with Swerve. They have a tag match against the Gates of Agony, which is wild to look back on. And the match against Full Gear, Swerve wins. Ospreay doesn't get the world belt. Kind of, stinky. But great match once again. During this, build to Forbidden Door, he still defends his belt. One match I want to point out was against Kyle O'Reilly, which I thought was a phenomenal match. I look back on that. I remember this one specifically, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoy Kyle O'Reilly anyway. This is when Kyle O'Reilly just returned. He had a match with Roderick Strong, actually. Singles match at Dynasty. That's a great match. But I just wanted to point out how much I enjoyed that. I'd love to see them run that back modern day, especially with how hot Kyle is now, right? Another match he has during this small thing, I just re-looked at it again, was Rey Fenix in a singles match. I remember this match being phenomenal. It's a shame how Rey Fenix went with the whole leaving AEW situation. But if anyone's never seen Rey Fenix single matches in AEW, I mean, they are phenomenal. And against someone like a Will Ospreay, phenomenal match. And this was just dynamite. This is how good Ospreay was. This is how good Ospreay was this year. He was just having genuine possible match of the year. If someone said some of these matches were their favourite matches of the year, I wouldn't put it past them because they're that good. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't agree. The Danielson match is right there. But honestly, that Phoenix match again is just phenomenal. This is the caliber of year Ospreay was having, right? It was insane. After Forbidden Door, this is when MJF's return was happening, and MJF was still a pseudo face, and he kind of had he had a promo with Danny Garcia. I remember this vividly. And this was the build for All In at this point. And he basically was trying to befriend Danny Garcia, and Garcia was at this point, Garcia was really getting some momentum, as he should. Garcia's great. And Ospreay comes out and basically steals the lights. And they teased at this point, MJF and Ospreay having a lot of like, clashing, you know, tensions, stuff like that. And the feud hadn't started at this point. And Ospreay offers Garcia a match for the title straight away. And MJF is originally, you know, just straight away, whatever, you know, dejected. Because Ospreay's basically overshadowing him. Because he's the main guy now, not Max. That was the whole point. And Garcia asks MJF to be in his corner for the match. They have the match. MJF betrays Garcia. And at this point, Garcia was rumoured to leave AEW. This is kind of important for later. And then that sets up MJF versus Ospreay at Dynamite 250. Now, besides the Danielson match for me, I think this is his best match of the year. And this is debatably, for me, the best TV match I've ever seen. Period. I genuinely believe this. MJF versus Ospreay went the hour for the AEW International Belt. It was phenomenal. It's one of my main... If you ever sleep on MJF's in-ring ability, I mean, this match disproves it instantly. Ospreay, again, with just that year, again, another... I don't like saying, like, 5 stars and stuff. This is a 5. It's phenomenal. And this match, again, an hour on Dynamite, and it flew. It had everything about it. The spots were great. The brutality, the ending I adore. MJF wins the international belt off Ospreay with 2 seconds to spare. And he cheated to win, as you'd expect. He's got the oxygen mask. He's going easy dub. Oh my god. Honestly, it was so good. And then that obviously sets up the MJF versus Ospreay feud. Now, at this point as well, Max is in full heel antics, as you expect. Changed the international belt to the All-American belt. He's an American hero. It's such a dumb gimmick. And just add more heat for the Ospreay feud. And they build Ospreay versus MJF for All In 24 at Wembley yet again for the All In American title, well, the AEW American title. What's wild about this match is, one, it's still insanely good. I remember watching this match. This was my most anticipated match for the entire card, besides Bryan, obviously, right? And just... it's still delivered, but this is how good the Dynamite one is. The Dynamite one's just so much better. Not so much better, but just better, right? So this match kind of doesn't get the credit for how good it is because the Dynamite one is just a phenomenal match. But this isn't. That's very important to note. This isn't a bad match at all. It's just a great... and in being, you know, watching it live, stuff like that, it's so much fun. The end, this is what I wanted to mention about Garcia. Garcia was rumoured to leave and he pulls up and costs MJF the match. That was great because no one knew that Garcia would be returning to the company, stuff like that. And then, again, Ospreay wins the belt back, another phenomenal match. And just, again, just like, at this point, this is August. And August is about it's definitely midway through the year, right? Past this point. And Ospreay's just momentum has not slowed down. It's not like altered and you're like, oh yeah, he's slowing down now, you know, he needs a rest. No. Like, I spoke about Mercedes Moné's consistency just throughout all of her reign. Ospreay's consistency is just non-stop. It's like a bullet train. And he's just, the levels just, I've never seen anything like it. I can't, like, you know, go into that more. It's insanely high. Again, I've never seen a year like it in my life. God's honest. Like I said, Ospreay won the belt back. And at this point, there was a lot of stuff going on with Pac at this point, still Blackpool Combat Club. And there was a lot of campaigning for Pac should be the first match. And Pac should have got the match at All In instead of Ospreay. So Pac attacked Ospreay at the end of a Dynamite. It was a sick kickflip. And they confirmed the match, stuff like that. They had a match against the Blackpool Combat Club at this point on their Dynamite, where Ospreay teamed up with the Conglomeration. I remember this because of the backstage segment with Ospreay and Mark Briscoe. Briscoe's promos with the Conglomeration are great. And they set up the match for Pac versus Ospreay at All Out. Now, this is, again, just... I don't know how many times I can repeat it. It's a phenomenal match. Pac and Ospreay, if you expected anything less... This is how good Ospreay's year, like, just again to kind of hammer this point home. It was just, anyone he had a match with, you'd be like, oh, that's going to be a phenomenal match. This is going to be insane. And people were getting to the point where okay, like, this guy has to win, like, everything. He has to win the world belt at some point. And it's still campaign, and obviously he's out injured now. But he has to just be there. He's the guy. And we know that now. But, like, this is his first few months. Yeah, AEW, like, audiences were accustomed with him. I don't know if I mentioned it before with the Kenny Omega match at Forbidden Door. Like, that's seen as one of the greatest matches of all time. And it's deservedly so. And just... this is how he was still well known because of matches like that. You knew how good his level was, but this consistency was insane. No one could have like foreseen this. Like, people would go, "Oh, Ospreay would have been good." That level, at that rate, was insanity, pure insanity, and it was great. It was phenomenal. Everyone loved them, and they still do. You know what I mean? Everyone knows how over Ospreay is. After the Pac match on possibly one of the worst nights of my life, Ospreay went down the Don Callis stuff. He left the Don Callis family around this point. And no, he didn't. He had left, but then Don Callis wanted him to help out with Kyle Fletcher and just in general with the Don Callis family. And at this point, they entered a tag team tournament, him and Kyle Fletcher as just a tag team, and they won the number one contender to be against the Young Bucks. Now, this is vital for Will Ospreay and obviously Kyle Fletcher. At this point, Kyle Fletcher was aligned with Don Callis, and they made it very evident that Ospreay and Kyle were very close friends, brother level, to the point where MJF had a match with Kyle, and that was like the breaking point for Ospreay in their feud, going into All In. Like, very close. They established this, and they really did well with it. They failed because of Will refusing to use the screwdriver for Don Callis in the tag tournament, costing Kyle. Kyle was very upset by this, and Ospreay was like, "I didn't want to win that way." They tried to hash it out, and then Ospreay continued to defend the belt. The next match Ospreay had after this whole stuff with the Don Callis family, bear in mind he's still feuding with them essentially, was against Ricochet for the international belt. Now, this was a very much anticipated match because Ospreay and Ricochet have a really good legacy with their matches. There's specifically one in the Super Juniors, I believe, that's considered insane. I've not seen it yet, but I can believe so. And the match was great. It got put in a no contest, however. And I think that was because it was a time limit draw. And then the next pay-per-view at this point was Wrestle Dream. Now, Wrestle Dream, they had a triple threat for the AEW International Belt. Obviously leading in with the Don Callis family feud stuff. We had Ospreay, Ricochet, and Takeshita. Now, this is, again, one of the greatest matches. This is one of my favourite matches, honestly. I think this is one of the most not spoken about matches I've ever seen. I think people acknowledge how good it is, but don't really talk about it all the time, because the obvious, everyone knows the obvious, considered the best triple threat of all time is the TNA, Styles, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels. You know, no real debate. But for me, honestly, this match I adore. I adore this match. I think this is one of my favourite matches I've seen, definitely of this year. It's one of the better ones. And just in general, Ospreay's just this match, Takeshita, Ospreay, like, all these guys' chemistry, the pace of it. The pace of this match is impeccable. Just everything about it, like Takeshita's hard hitting, Ospreay, and like every each of the guys. It's like a triangle, right? It's like every single guy's chemistry with each other just is nailed. It's perfected. It feels like, and just honestly, this is one of the better matches of his year, and that's like insane for me. I think personally, this isn't even in his top 3 matches of this year, but it's still one of my favourites. And that, again, is just how good this year is. We'll go over what I think his top 3 matches of this year was. But, again, phenomenal match. And this is the big moment in Ospreay's year, because 1, he loses the belt to Takeshita, and 2, Kyle Fletcher comes out and interferes and turns heel on Ospreay, leading to what we know Kyle Fletcher as today. He shaves his hair in the ring, denounces Ospreay, and just at that moment, if you ever go back and watch the segment, I more than encourage you. You see it unfold, the star make it in your eyes, and it's just phenomenal to see. Now, the match after this, they obviously set up this basically set up the Ospreay and Fletcher feud, as you expect. And they had a match after this. I just want to go over this because it never made sense to me. They had the Don Callis family versus Ospreay, Davis, Ricochet, and Hobbs. Hobbs made sense, Ricochet made sense in a way, But Ricochet made sense because Takeshita was in the match and he wanted revenge on Takeshita for costing him the belt, which they did have a Full Gear, which is the next pay-per-view. Hobbs because he hated Don Callis because he basically left him in the ledge. But then Mark Davis is there, and I was like, why is Davis there? I never understood that. And then what's wild is they just made Davis go heel again, like without real explanation. It just made no sense to me personally. This feud, a lot of people got invested in the Fletcher versus Ospreay stuff, as they should. And it's still renowned as one of the better feuds of AEW's entire history. Just the star maker of Kyle Fletcher and basically the monster that Ospreay basically unbathed. Ospreay and Fletcher. Fletcher was always seen as like Ospreay's friend, as the younger brother, stuff like that. And this kind of just solidified Fletcher's just point of he's not. And that was kind of the point of the feud. And it was... I've spoke how much I love Kyle Fletcher. You probably know. And he's one of the best talents on this roster. And just to see all this happen, and in the next match with Ospreay in AEW Full Gear, just as a match, which is a great match as you expect. I mean, it's not even their best match. Just phenomenal. I mean, what a wrestler, what a feud. And it's only just getting kicked off at this point. At the Full Gear match, the shock of it was Kyle Fletcher actually beat Ospreay, which is insane. At this point, that was such an insane call. Because, as kind of established, Ospreay's one of the better guys, probably the best. At this point, he's the best wrestler of the year. There's no real debate. And he's just owning it. And for Fletcher, such a young, such a young guy, and then someone who kind of didn't have that credit behind him to get a win over Ospreay of all people was nuts. And it's a great match, and it made sense. Everything about it made sense. Now, next for Ospreay, after this big, basic blow in getting beat by Fletcher, was he entered at this point, the second year of the Continental Classic in the Gold League. Now, Ospreay's Continental Classic run is insanely good, as you expect. The matches he faced in this tournament were Juice Robinson, Claudio Castagnoli, Darby Allin, Ricochet, and Brody King. Now, all 5 of those wrestlers are phenomenal. The Juice match was really good. The Claudio match was really good. The Darby match is the one really of note. The Darby matches, if people don't think the MJF matches is one of the best matches on television ever, wrestling-wise, the Darby one's probably the preferred. The Darby one is the match that made people, I think, realise how good of a technical wrestler Darby is. It's the first time they ever faced. And it was just how Darby, everything about it. The chemistry of those guys. Like, a lot of people were looking forward to it, but no one expected it to be that good. And just... it was phenomenal match, and I don't think it's better than the MJF match personally, but I think this match is better than the All-In match against MJF. I don't think it's better than the Dynamite match, but that's like a seriously high bar yet again. It was one of the TV matches of the year. I feel like if someone said either of these matches with television wrestling matches of the year, period, ever possibly, I wouldn't disagree. From what I've seen, completely get it. The Darby match in the Continental Classic was excellent. He lost to Darby at this point, and then his next match was Ricochet, and he lost to Ricochet too. So it was getting kind of tight for Ospreay to qualify for the Continental Classic, and he beat Brody King in the last match, which was very much a close call at that point. Great run. Now, the Continental Classic has the semi-finals and the finals both take place on the same night at World's End, the last pay-per-view of the year entirely for AEW. Now, who was his semi-final he faced against? None other than Kyle Fletcher. And for me, I prefer the World's End match to the Full Gear match personally, because, like I said, it takes place in the same night as the final. And I think for Ospreay to pull off this performance, and again, like, the Kyle match at this one, at World's End, is phenomenal. Phenomenal match. And just, honestly, I adore it. I adore this match. I adore this pay-per-view. Just for Ospreay, because on the other end it was Ricochet versus Kazuchika Okada, and Okada wins. Now Ospreay takes the match against Fletcher at World's End ends quite brutally. Ospreay's bleeding very much. He's clearly taped up, like, and there's this backstage promo, and he's clearly hyped up. He goes, "Let's fucking go, lad!" It's brilliant, and he's cut. He looks like he's got jam everywhere in his face. It's blood. It's insane. And then he goes out the same night to have a match against Okada. Now, Okada and Ospreay have a great legacy in New Japan, as you expect, both top guys over there. And this match, again, is one of the matches of the year, and it was at the very end of the year. And the final on the same night. This is what solidifies Ospreay's year, is insane to me. This match, for me, is phenomenal, and it's possibly the top 3. I think the top 3 for me of Ospreay's matches this year where the Bryan Danielson match, obviously, the MJF Dynamite match, and this. But then that's the top three. And then outside the top three, the matches I'm leaving out are the Derby match, the Pac match, the triple threat from Wrestle Dream. Stuff like this is insane. That's how good of a year Will Ospreay has. And I really, like, if you're an AEW fan and you're watching at this point, you know, you get this. You understand how, like, stacked Ospreay's year was. And just this Okada match. Oh my God. It's like, I think that was the perfect bow on a just phenomenal gift of a year for pro wrestling that Will Ospreay's year was. I think we'll never see an in-ring just performance consistently over a year. Bear in mind, Revolution was March. It was on my birthday, March 3rd. And it went on till World's End, which is the very end of the year. There was no breaks, realistically. It was consistent. There's genuinely no bad match. On the pay-per-view side, you'd probably say, oh yeah, the worst match Ospreay had was probably the Roderick Strong match at Double or Nothing. That's still an insane match. That is debatably a match of the night on most pay-per-views. And it probably was for some people on the Double or Nothing match. That's how insane Ospreay's year was. I don't believe in star ratings. I don't. I've made that clear. And I just think there's a lot of people go, I don't really give Dave Meltzer's opinion credit. I don't. Make your own opinions, essentially. I just think people wax lyrical about, like, oh, he gives Ospreay 5s for anything. This year was near enough every pay-per-view match. You couldn't argue against it. That's how insane it was. Oh my God, looking back on it, I've always considered Ospreay's 24 insane. I always say to people that year is like never going to be replicated. And it bled into 2025, as you expect. It basically bled into when he left recently at Forbidden Door this year. And just that whole year bookended Revolution to World's End, including the Dynamite matches. Phenomenal. There's no bad match. Go through it. Genuinely, there's no bad match. None. For me, the greatest match of all time is in that year. For me, that is my 100% greatest match of all time. And that's in this year from one wrestler. Don't be wrong, the other wrestler, in my opinion, definitely helps it. But Ospreay just, like, he made everything click. It was, honestly, I cannot say it enough times. It's just magic. Pure magic from just the in-ring stuff. The World's End match, he does lose to Okada. I need to make that clear, because Okada wins the Continental Classic. But, like, I think, I remember it quite vividly, Ospreay still gets, like, cheered out. Obviously, Okada's the heel. But it was, like, it just, again, it was a perfect bow. It really was a perfect bow, honestly. And just, I just went on a little ramble about Ospreay's 24. It's that good. Just in-ring. And, like, I just want to make it clear, that's just his in-ring stuff. Ospreay, as a character, just as a promo, everything, clicked with the AEW audience straight away. In that original Returns promo where he sets up the match with Takeshita, he has that audience in his hand. He's so charming. He's got so much charisma, so much, and everyone adores Will Ospreay. He's probably the best babyface they've got, even now, probably. Hangman's like the guy. Hangman's the main character. We all know this, but Ospreay's just pure likability as a guy. He's so charming. He doesn't change anything about himself. He's obviously the most British guy there, and just he doesn't change that. His in-ring style, everything about him. You know, he clearly gives it all. It's like, to the point where people were telling Ospreay, you need to slow down just to, you know, preserve yourself. You don't have to try as hard. And he's like, I will leave everything in this ring. Ospreay's interviews, everything about him, backstage stuff, the stories, the stories he had. He had the MJF feud, which I think was a great feud. I hope they continue out, and they tease that they will. The Fletcher feud is his magnum opus, in my opinion. The stuff with Ricochet, short-lived. The Continental Classic. The Don Callis stuff with Takeshita and just Don Callis in general, which bled over into the Kyle feud. And then just everything about his year at that point was phenomenal. And I think I'll do a separate video, because this one's going on long enough, about just how it bled into 25, because that's insane too, as you expect. And just, honestly, if you've ever seen a year like that from a wrestler, please let me know, because I've not. I've genuinely not. I don't think I ever will. I think that is once in a lifetime stuff. Voices in my head. And just everything about Ospreay's 24 that's my favourite year. It holds a place for me. It's everything about wrestling that I adore. The consistency, the charisma, everything. It was like the most complete package ever. I think I've made it clear. I've just rambled completely about Ospreay's 24. And honestly, please let me know what you think about Ospreay's 24. What do you think about Will Ospreay in general? Because this is just about his 24, not just my opinion of the guy. I'm clearly a massive fan of him. But just in general, what do you think of his 2024? What's your favourite match out of the 24? Yeah, because as much as I will say the Danielson match is the best, bar none, sorry. I can obviously, understand if you say the MJF match is your favourite. Even the Roderick Strong, which is probably the weakest pay-per-view match he has, is your favourite. I get it. I completely get it. The Okada match, the triple threat, stuff like that. What's your favourite? Because I'm really interested to know. And just in general, what's your opinion on Will Ospreay?